The Amory Wars is an ongoing series of science fiction comic books and novels created by Coheed and Cambria frontman Claudio Sanchez and published by Evil Inc. Comics. The name also refers to the fictional conflict at the center of the story, which is told across the published works and is also the primary focus of most of the band's music. Each of Coheed and Cambria's studio albums, with the exception of 2015's The Color Before the Sun, tells a chapter in the saga originally narrated by Sanchez's lyrics. The band also makes use of recurring melodies, self-referencing musical and lyrical cues in certain songs that reference key moments in the Amory Wars mythology. Some individual songs on these albums, example The Crowing, Everything Evil, Three Evils, use a particular song structure known as terminally climactic form in order to depict a particularly violent action from the story. Because the mythos isn't wholly comprehensible through the music and lyrics alone, Sanchez created the Amory Wars comics and novels to better depict the story's events and characters. The Amory Wars is set in Heaven's Fence, a collection of 78 planets and 7 stars, held in place by interconnecting beams of energy known as the Keywork. Year of the Black Rainbow and second stage Turbine Blade narrate the struggle of Coheed Kilgannon and Cambria Kilgannon against Wilhelm Ryan, the supreme Trimage who launches a war campaign with the intended goal to rule over Heaven's Fence. The story arcs in Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth, 3, Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness, and Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 2, No World for Tomorrow focus on the heroic journey of Claudio Kilgannon, son of Coheed and Cambria, and his journey to assume the mantle of the crowing, foretold savior of Heaven's Fence. Set long before the events of the previous chapters, the Afterman, Ascension and the Afterman, Descension tell the story of Dr. Sirius Amory, a scientist who enters the Keywork in an attempt to understand its mysterious energy. Vaxis, Hacked Eye, The Unheavenly Creatures is the first of 5 story arcs that continue the original Amory Wars saga and follows the story of Creature and Sister Spider, who are incarcerated within the prison planet known as the Dark Sentencer. The story arcs within the Amory Wars universe follow a fictional timeline and are connected by continuity of events, characters, and locations. Coheed and Cambria's first 4 studio album releases told the main story in chronological order, with each release picking up the story where the last album left off. The second stage Turbine Blade. In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth, 3. Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 2, No World for Tomorrow. Although No World for Tomorrow has yet to receive a published comic or novel, and therefore its events are largely left to speculation, it acted as a conclusion to the original Amory Wars tale. 2010's Year of the Black Rainbow acts as a prequel that sets up the events that take place in the previous 4 albums, following many of the same characters. Together, The Afterman, Ascension, 2012, and The Afterman, Descension, 2013, told a new story set even earlier in the timeline than the first 5 releases. These albums focused on new characters while elaborating on previously introduced concepts. The 2018 album Vaxis, Hacked Eye, The Unheavenly Creatures is the first story arc to take place after the original tetralogy. Much like the Afterman albums, it focuses on an entirely new cast and setting within the Amory Wars universe. This chapter is set to be the first of 5 in the Vaxis story arc, and its connections to the previous events in the timeline will become more apparent in the coming iterations. In 2004, the first graphic series related to the Amory Wars was published with Evil Inc.'s release of the Bag.On.Line Adventures, the second stage Turbine Blade, written by Claudio Sanchez and illustrated by Wes Abbott. However, after 2 issues were published, the project was discontinued due to creative roadblocks including Sanchez's touring schedule with Coheed and Cambria. These original issues were later included in the Amory Wars, the second stage Turbine Blade Ultimate Edition. Evil Inc. then released the Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness graphic novel in 2005 to accompany the release of Coheed and Cambria's third studio album of the same name. This publication was again written by Sanchez and illustrated by Christopher Shine. Unlike the previous release for second stage Turbine Blade, this graphic novel told the entire story of the Good Apollo Volume 1 album, though many details were still unclear. During a 2006 interview, Claudio cited financial constraints for the irregular and unfinished release of the story's publications, and explained that Evil Inc. intended to publish new comics under the title The Amory Wars that would retell the concept chronologically. Throughout 2007, Evil Inc. released the first volume of The Amory Wars, the second stage Turbine Blade, which consisted of 5 issues written by Claudio Sanchez and illustrated by Gus Vasquez, chapters 1 and 2, and Mike S. Miller. Chapters 3, 5. The second volume was released over the course of 2008, consisting of 5 more chapters written by Sanchez with artist Gabriel Guzman providing illustration. On August 15, 2017, Boom Studios released The Amory Wars, the second stage Turbine Blade Ultimate Edition, which included all 10 issues, as well as the both issues original out-of-print Bag.On.Line Adventures, the second stage Turbine Blade, and a new bonus story, 33 written by Sanchez and illustrated by Dave Hammond. On April 13, 2010, Coheed and Cambria released their 5th studio album Year of the Black Rainbow. The deluxe version of the album included a novel co-written by Sanchez and Peter David, which narrates the album's story, which takes place prior to the events of the second stage Turbine Blade and acts as a prequel to the Amory Wars saga. In 2010, Claudio again enlisted David to co-write the comic adaptation of the band's second studio album. Evil Inc. released the first issue of the Amory Wars, In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth, 3 on May 26, 2010. The story was told across a series of 12 comics released throughout 2010 and 2011, with Chris Burnham illustrating chapters 1, 7, and Aaron Kuder illustrating the remaining 8 to 12. All 12 chapters were later compiled and released as The Amory Wars, In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth, 3 Ultimate Edition by Boom Studios on April 10, 2018. Coheed and Cambria's 6th and 7th albums, respectively titled The Afterman, Ascension, released 2012, and The Afterman, Descension, released 2013, each had their story told in a similar manner to Year of the Black Rainbow. The album's deluxe editions each included a limited edition coffee table book that featured the story of each song written by Sanchez and illustrations Nathan Spoor. The band announced on January 24, 2017, that Evil Inc. would be releasing The Amory Wars, Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness to coincide with their anniversary tour for their 3rd studio album, dubbed Never Ender, Gabe Siv. Co-written by Sanchez and his wife Chandra Richert, this new adaptation told the full version of the album's story than depicted in the 2004 graphic novel. The story was illustrated by Regs Morales, and released across 12 issues that ran from April 5, 2017, through October 10, 2018. As with the first 2 installments of the Amory Wars comics, Boom Studios released a hardcover Ultimate Edition on October 8, 2019, which includes all 12 issues as well as the original graphic novel. After taking a break from their mythology on their 2015 album, The Color Before the Sun, Coheed and Cambria released their 9th album, Vaxus, Hacked Eye, The Unheavenly Creatures, on October 5, 2018. The album began a new story set after the events of the previous album's mythology, and the deluxe box set version of the album included a novella written by Sanchez and Richert with illustrations by artist Chase Stone. While there has yet to be an official release of the story told in the band's 4th studio album, Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 2, No World for Tomorrow, the band has confirmed that the comic is next to be released. On February 4, 2020, Coheed and Cambria announced the No World for Tomorrow Never Ender tour, during which the band will tour the United States and perform the album in its entirety at each show from May 5, 2020, through May 29, 2020. In an official email sent to fans, the group stated that after the tour, we look to launch the NWFT series of the Amory Wars, meaning that the story for No World for Tomorrow, and the conclusion of the original Amory Wars story, will be officially published for the first time since its release in 2007. The original name of the story was the Bag.On.Line Adventures of Coheed and Cambria. This would also be the name of the first chapter of their story and the respective album, chronologically. From the story's standpoint, Bag.On.Line Adventures would come before second stage Turbine Blade. The Bag.On.Line Adventures would essentially work as a prequel and would follow the story of Coheed, Cambria, and Jesse as part of an anti-terrorist agency called the KBI, which stood for the Knowledge, referring to Cambria in her ability to see the future and other events, the Beast, referring to Coheed in his ability to fight his way out of basically any tight situation, and the Inferno, referring to Jesse, the burning heart and soul of the KBI. The name Bag.On.Line came from a shop across from Claudio Sanchez's apartment during the trip to Paris in which he first conceptualized the Coheed and Cambria saga. Since then, Coheed and Cambria have released the prequel to second stage Turbine Blade, titled Year of the Black Rainbow. After Sanchez changed the name to the Amory Wars, he also released a sketchbook, illustrated by Gus Vasquez, which plots out the next comic. Originally dubbed Comic Zero, the Amory Wars sketchbook was released at Comic-Con. Later, the Evil Inc. website began selling the sketchbook in limited release. This comic explains the very beginning of the Keywork in Heaven's Fence. Years pass and the comic ends introducing Coheed Kilgannon on his home planet of Hetricus. First released in the summer of 2004, the original 2 comic books narrate the events of approximately the first third of Coheed and Cambria's concept album The Second Stage Turbine Blade of 2002. They introduce central characters, including the villains Wilhelm Ryan and Mayo Defton-Wilf, who orchestrate a sinister plot to murder the children of Coheed and Cambria Kilgannon in order to use the dormant Monstar virus hidden within Coheed to destroy the Keywork. Claudio Kilgannon escapes murder at the hands of his parents, who have been tricked into believing that their children may cause the destruction of humanity if left alive, and becomes the protagonist of later chapters. These early issues, which were inked by Wes Abbott, are now out of print. Gus Vasquez began illustrating the re-release of the Amory Wars, which begins with the first issue of the second stage Turbine Blade. Vasquez's participation in the production of this series was short-lived as Mike Miller took over after the second issue and illustrated 3 to 5. The first 5 issues in the miniseries represent the second stage Turbine Blade, Volume 1, and cover the first half of the chapter. The first issue was released June 13, and subsequent issues were released monthly. It was published by Claudio's company Evil Inc. Comics along with the help of Image Comics and 12 Gauge Comics, and cover art was illustrated by Tony Moore of The Walking Dead fame. The first 5 issues were released as a paperback graphic novel with a brand new cover by usual cover artist Tony Moore. A special variant cover was released as well and only sold in Hot Topic retail stores. The 5 issues, 6 to 10, and Part 2 were illustrated by Gabriel Guzman and were released as a paperback graphic novel with cover art by Tony Moore on December 9, 2009. In August 2010, these 2 volumes of 5 comics were released together in a single hardcover edition titled The Amory Wars, Ultimate Edition. The 2 original issues by Wes Abbott, as well as the cover artwork for all 12 comics, are also included in the back of this 350-page release. The second part of the Amory Wars, In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth, 3 is a 12-part comic series written by Claudio Sanchez and Peter David, who both co-wrote the Year of the Black Rainbow novel, with artwork by Chris Burnham. The first issue was released on May 26, 2010, and the second issue was released on June 23, 2010. The series was later collected into 3 trade paperback volumes each containing 4 issues. The corresponding album of the same name from Coheed and Cambria was released in late 2003. A small summary of the chapter's plot was published on the former Evil Inc. Comics website. 10 years after the Turbine Blade, son Claudio emerges from the depths of Shiloh's 10, the Fence's quiet planet where the Red Army performs its brutal interrogations and imprisonments. In finding out that his entire family has been murdered, Claudio begins his quest for vendetta. His foes, Supreme Tri-Mage Wilhelm Ryan and General Mayo Defton-Wilf, sense that he is still alive and holds special powers. They know they must stop him before he defeats them. Meanwhile, Inferno, Jesse Kilgannon, takes up arms against the Red Army, man your battle stations, in an effort to seek the same kind of vengeance on him. In Claudio's re-emergence he teams up with Ambelina, the Price who was cast out by her peers and forced to be his guide. The pair, along with Caesar, a disassembled IRO bot, seek out Inferno to find answers as to why his family were killed, but their plans take an unexpected turn in a ship called the Camper Valorium, piloted by a believed to be racist psychopath named Al. A graphic novel titled Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness, illustrated by Christopher Shine, was released in September 2005 along with the album of the same name. The story of Good Apollo takes a step outside the science fiction narrative of the first 3 chapters and examines the life of the writer, the character who is crafting the lives of the protagonist Claudio and his companions in the form of a fictional story. Through a series of delusional conversations with his 10-speed bicycle about an unfaithful former lover, the writer decides he must kill the prize Ambelina to properly end his story. The events in the narrative itself build up to a final confrontation between Jesse's rebel forces and the Red Army of Supreme Tri-Mage Wilhelm Ryan under the command of General Mayo Defton-Wolf, as well as a literal meeting of the writer and Claudio culminating in the death of Ambelina and Claudio's emergence as the Crowing. The new Amory Wars series, illustrated by Rags Morales, retells the story of Good Apollo. Claudio stated that a lot was lost from the graphic novel because of financial constraints. He further explained that although Christopher Schei's art is beautiful, it was not the best medium for Good Apollo storytelling. Claudio looks forward to releasing a new version in chronological order so that the story will make more sense. The first issue of the Amory Wars, Good Apollo, released on April 5, 2017 by Evil Ink Comics and Boom Studios. Illustrated by Rags Morales with colors by Emilio Lopez, the series chronicles the main plot points of the original graphic novel and also sets the stage for the next series with a twist in the final confrontation between Jesse and Mayo Defton-Wolf. That series is currently in the outlining stage. The Good Apollo series concluded on October 10, 2018. It is currently collected in 3 trade paperbacks with an ultimate collected edition coming soon. Apart from the album, no story mediums for Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 2, No World for Tomorrow have been released, but the new series will introduce its story. Year of the Black Rainbow is the prequel of the Amory Wars. The album of the same name was released April 13, 2010, and with it came a 352-page novel detailing the events of the story. It tells of how Wilhelm Ryan came to power by killing or abducting all the other mages. A mysterious black rainbow also appears in the sky the day Ryan takes supremacy. A civilian, named Dr. Leonard Hohenberger, is dissatisfied with the Supreme Tri-Mage's rule and is inspired by the prize to create 3 IRO bots, known as the KBI, Cambria, Knowledge, Coheed, Beast, and Jesse, Inferno. While the KBI are out on the other planets of Heaven's Fence, destroying everything Ryan had made, Hohenberger's wife, Pearl, is kidnapped by Mayo Defton-Wolf. Defton-Wolf offers the Doctor an ultimatum: if the Doctor will help Ryan create a virus that has the potential to destroy Heaven's Fence, the Monstar virus, Pearl will be returned to him. If Hohenberger refuses, Pearl dies. Leonard creates the virus, but locks it inside the bodies of Coheed and Cambria so Ryan cannot immediately use it, giving the Doctor time to create a cure. Ryan takes Coheed and Cambria to his stronghold to figure out how to extract the virus. In return for his treachery, the Tri-Mage sends Pearl back with a gun, after telling her that Leonard had helped Ryan cause the downfall of the universe. However, back home, Pearl finds she cannot kill her husband, and instead kills herself. Leonard leaves a set of instructions for Inferno, and sets out to get revenge by attempting to kill Mayo Defton-Wolf. The assassination fails, and the Doctor himself is killed instead. Meanwhile, Inferno follows the Doctor's instructions and discovers he has made a cure for the Monstar in the form of another IRO bot, named Josephine. With new hope, Inferno flies to Ryan's stronghold, the House Atlantic. He breaks in and saves Coheed and Cambria, mutilating Defton-Wolf in the process. While Inferno is gone, his troops rain down firepower on the House Atlantic from their ship, the Grail Arbor. After the KBI have left, the Grail Arbor fully destroys House Atlantic. Ryan himself almost dies, but is rescued at the last moment by Bilar Crom, a soldier taken from one of the opposing mages' armies. Ryan vows for revenge as he flies off. The Black Rainbow also disappears once he is gone. Meanwhile, in the epilogue of the story, Inferno, still following Hohenberger's orders, whites the minds of Coheed and Cambria to make them think they are an ordinary couple and Josephine is their newborn daughter. He wishes them the best as they begin their new lives with no memory of the KBI or the events of this story. A compilation of the lyrics, artwork, and story content associated with the Afterman, Ascension, written by Claudio Sanchez and co-written by Peter David, was released with a deluxe edition on October 9, 2012. The story chronologically precedes the events that take place in the Year of the Black Rainbow. However, it is technically not a part of the Amory Wars saga, even though it takes place within the same universe. Focusing on the famous cosmonaut Sirius Amory, pronounced Syrus Amory, the story describes Amory's scientific investigation of the Keywork, which, up until this point, has only been identified as a mysterious energy source that supplies nutrients to the 78 planets that make up Heaven's fence. This expedition is overwhelmingly discouraged by Amory's wife, Mary, who considers it to be nothing short of suicide. Despite Mary's disapproval, Sirius goes forward with his mission. As the sole passenger on his spacecraft, the Merriwell, Amory's only companion is a computer system known as the All-Mother, which also operates inside his spacesuit. The All-Mother is tasked with analyzing and reporting Sirius' vital conditions throughout his mission as well as recording his findings. In order to obtain samples of the keywork, Sirius leaves his ship and enters the energy source, his suit, and the All-Mother being the only things preventing him from instantaneous death. Quickly, Amory identifies the true source of the keywork's energy as being the souls of those that have died. The souls maintain the characteristics and personalities of their previous lives and have the ability to infuse themselves with Amory. The first entity to come into contact with Sirius is Domino the Destitute. As the entity takes control of the cosmonaut, Amory relives the life of Domino. In life, Domino was an up-and-coming boxer who, with the help of his brother Chess, achieved victories and attracted the attention of a crime boss, Kryptonon Krus. Despite initial success, Domino allowed the world of fortune and fame to corrupt him. Overindulgence in alcohol and drugs resulted in him faltering in the abilities he had worked so hard to achieve and severely strained the relationship between him and his brother. The final effort to save his career, which involved him going toe-to-toe with a champion boxer known as the Saul the Ghostmaker Maven, resulted in Domino getting knocked out in the last round. After this failure, Domino was left bankrupt and homeless. As the last chance to redeem himself, Kryptor ordered Domino to rob an armored truck. He then enticed his brother to join him with the promise of fortune, a proposal to which Chess agreed. The robbery went awry, resulting in the death of Chess. After watching his brother die, Domino committed suicide. Back in the keywork, the entity of Domino the Destitute releases a destructive frequency through the All-Mother, destroying Sirius' ship and severely injuring Amory in the process. The destruction of his ship is identified by scientists and it is declared that Sirius Amory had died in the explosion. Mary curses Sirius for being selfish and taking it upon himself to find the answers of Heaven's fence. She goes to a bar in order to deal with her emotions and is almost drugged with a benzodiazepine, saved only by a police officer who witnessed a man slip the pill into her drink. It is then foreshadowed that this police officer would become Mary's new love interest. In the keywork, Sirius remains vulnerable to the entities. The next spirit to take control of him is Hollywood the Cracked. In life, Hollywood was a fanatical follower of an artist known as Madame Crisis Marrow, MCM. Through plastic surgery and physical alterations, Hollywood attempted, at all costs, to become an exact replication of MCM. The surgeries backfired and left her physically deformed. Coping with insanity, Hollywood decided that the only way to become MCM was to kill the artist and take her place. Witnessing the events firsthand, as if he were Hollywood, Sirius tries at all costs to stop the murder but is unsuccessful. Immediately after being released from the entity of Hollywood the Cracked, the third entity takes control of Sirius. In life, Vic the Butcher was a decorated military general. He committed atrocious war crimes but hid them from the public by harming the soldiers under him and threatening their families if they reported him. One soldier, known as Sentry, refused to cave to these threats and stood up to Vic. This resulted in Sentry being hanged and Vic moving on with his life. Years later, Vic is indicted for his human rights violations. Instead of facing his inner demons, Vic sets his apartment, room 184, on fire. This results in the entire building burning down, including a nursery on the first floor. Sirius is then released from Vic the Butcher and receives severe health warnings from the All-Mother. He is on the verge of death and has no method of going home. Just in time, a completely different type of entity takes control of him, protecting him from the grasps of Domino, Holly, and Vic, and begins to soothe his wounds. In life, Evagria was a wonderful human being. She spent countless hours helping those in need and attempting to improve the lives of everyone around her. As she aged, Evagria was diagnosed with a rare and incurable bone disease. Surrounded by her loving friends and family, Evagria succumbed to the disease and died. Inside the keywork, Evagria takes Sirius, now identified by the entities as the Afterman, to the next plane of the afterlife. The end of the Afterman, Ascension describes Sirius' admittance that he was unfair to Mary, putting his own ambitions before her well-being and emotional security. He becomes regretful of his decisions as he slips even further into the keywork. The Afterman, Descension begins with Sirius still encompassed in the protective aura of Evagria. However, she has become weakened due to the cost of energy necessary to keep the Afterman alive. As her power drains, Amory is convinced that these will be the last moments of his life. It is at this crucial time that Sirius is saved by the entity of Sentry the Defiant, the soldier who gave his life to evince the brutality of Vic the Butcher. In life, Sentry was the opposite of Vic. He worked his way up the ranks through hard work and conviction. When ordered by Vic to bomb an off-world structure, which would undoubtedly cause the deaths of innocent people, Sentry defies the order and tells another sergeant about Vic's ruthlessness. Planning to report the incident to the field marshal, Sentry is hanged in the barracks by Vic out of fear. The murder was not reported for years until an overwhelming amount of evidence against Vic entices individuals to speak out against his war crimes. As the entities of Vic and Sentry continue to battle in the keywork, Sirius realizes that Sentry must forego his worldly emotions and move on in the afterlife. Conversing with Sentry, Amory convinces him that the entity's existence is not defined by one event. Realizing this, Sentry crosses over into the second plane of the keywork, known as the Dimension of Enlightenment, or the Samaritan. Sirius is left defenseless against a swarm of malevolent entities that are approaching to occupy his body and mind. Once again, Evagria intervenes and carries Sirius with her to the Dimension of Enlightenment. Unable to remain in this dimension, Evagria shows him how to exit the keywork. Once released, the All-Mother unsuccessfully attempts to re-establish communication with the remains of the Merriwell. The Afterman's only other option is to use the suit to land on an orbiting space station. At this time, the All-Mother reveals that, although what seemed to Sirius to be a week inside the keywork, it has actually been 547 days since he began his mission. Sirius successfully lands on the space station and is offered assistance in returning home. Upon returning to his home planet of Valentine, Sirius is conflicted with the idea of sharing what he has learned. He seeks the advice of his longtime mentor, Dr. Alan Lincoln, who argues that the discovery of an afterlife, where the acceptance of one's soul is not determined by that person's actions in life, could cause mass chaos and a fundamental existential crisis. Sirius' indecision causes the intervention of the Prize, an angelic species tasked with the protection of Heaven's fence. The Prize explained to Amory that the secrets of the keywork were meant to be known by them, and God alone, and that any disclosure of his findings would be considered an act of war. Heeding the Prize's directions, Amory lies to the public about his findings and substitutes a physics-laden explanation of how the keywork operates. Having pleased the public with his explanations, Sirius turns to the daunting task of mending his relationship with Mary, who has come to terms with the Afterman's assumed death and has engaged in a relationship with Colton, the police officer who prevented her from consuming a spiked beverage. Sirius is awarded the Amory Award, a recognition of scientific achievement created in his honor. After the ceremony, Sirius and Mary are driving home for the first time in over a year. Mary reveals that although she loves Sirius, she can no longer be with him. She confesses her relationship with Colton in the fact that she is 3 months pregnant with his offspring. Shocked by the news, Sirius loses control of the vehicle and wrecks, causing both of them to be ejected. At the hospital, Sirius' life is saved. Mary suffers a miscarriage and, despite the doctor's best efforts, dies. Mary then enters the keywork as a spiritual entity. Devastated, Sirius contemplates suicide and blames himself for not providing Mary with the two things she desired most, his attention and a child. Returning from the hospital, Sirius encounters Colton, who interrogates the Afterman as to why he couldn't selfishly let Mary go and remain in the keywork. An unknown amount of time passes. Sirius reconnects with the All-Mother and acquires a new ship, Saudade, through funding from the scientific community. He programs the coordinates to reach the keywork and is questioned by the All-Mother regarding his overarching goals. His sole mission has become to re-enter the keywork, find Mary, and help her transcend into the Samaritan. Coheed Kilgannon, husband of Cambria and harbors the Monstar virus, which, when triggered, causes the cooling of the star transformers that hold planets in the keywork. Previously a member of KBI, Coheed being the Beast. He possesses blades in his left arm and can transform his right into a gun. He is killed by Cambria during a conflict when he becomes the Monstar. Cambria Kilgannon, wife of Coheed, and possesses some type of psychic or clairvoyant ability. Previously a member of KBI, Cambria being the K, knowledge. She commits suicide after killing her husband to save Earth 3. Claudio Kilgannon, son of Coheed and Cambria and the only known survivor of his family. After meeting his uncle Jesse, the two plan to destroy Heaven's Fence and kill Wilhelm Ryan. Ambelina explains to Claudio that he is also the Crowing, a messiah who will save the souls of the Keywork by destroying it. However, he is not willing to accept this fate until the climax of Good Apollo and Burning Star 4 Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. Jesse, although commonly referred to as Coheed's brother, Jesse, like Coheed, is an IR robot. Jesse leads the rebels in war against Wilhelm Ryan. The third member of KBI, Inferno, Jesse is said to have created 5 new IR robots. Jesse is also a boxer and goes by the name of the prize fighter Inferno. Mariah Antillaria, originally believed to be the Messiah, Mariah is the leader of a rebellion against Wilhelm Ryan. She is also married to Jesse. Ambelina, a prize. Ambelina burns off her wings to be more human at the order of the other prize. She is sent to guide Claudio to his destiny as the Crowing. Like the rest of the prize, her mission is to watch over the Keywork and see that God's will is carried out. She represents the future the writer could have had with his former girlfriend Erica Court. Wilhelm Ryan, the supreme Trimage of the Keywork. He gained control of the Keywork during the Mage Wars when he claimed dominion over the other mages. Ryan tried to use Coheed and Cambria to destroy Mariah because of her threat to his rule. When his plan failed, she was killed by Mayo Deft and Wolf. He now fights the rebel army, which is led by Jesse. The writer, also referred to as the writing writer, the issues in his own life make him see delusions that cause him to take out his own suffering on the characters in his story. The story gets darker as his own problems grow. He doesn't want the character, Claudio, to feel the same pain that he feels, so he interferes with the story. He sees the visions of 10 Speed who manipulates his thinking. 10 Speed, the manifestation of the writer's ill will and malice that takes the form of his 10 Speed bicycle. 10 Speed convinces the writer that he needs to kill off Ambelina in order to end the story. Erica Court, the writer's former lover, memories of whom cause him to descend into madness and interfere with the story of Heaven's Fence. It is hinted that the writer once asked Erica Court to marry him, the suffering, and that at some point in the relationship he turned hostile. Welcome home. Josephine Kilgannon, oldest child of Coheed and Cambria and fiancée of Patrick McCormick. An IR robot created by Dr. Hohenberger to serve as the antidote to Coheed's Monstar virus, Josie possesses a telepathic link with Cambria. Josie is assaulted and raped by a gang called the Jersey City Devils and is later murdered by Coheed after he was deceived by Mayo. Leonard Hohenberger, scientist that created the KBI and Josephine, he also created the Monstar virus to save his wife Pearl from the hands of Ryan by giving Ryan himself the weapon that would start the end of the worlds. Sirius Amory, cosmonaut that identified the source of the Keywork and the 7 suns that make up Heaven's Fence. On a mission to collect data on the Keywork, Sirius is stranded in the energy source and becomes a vessel for which souls relive their lives. On December 2, 2012, Mark Wahlberg announced he will be producing a film adaptation of the Amory Wars. In 2019, conversation once again turned to adaptation of the Amory Wars when a petition created on the platform Change.org the prior year began to gain traction. Though no official reports from the creators have confirmed a project, support from fans and news reports sparked a campaign displaying interest in a series on Netflix.